we got a special guest today, Sam Gorden. Gorden with an
E.
Yes, Gorden.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here, man. I'm
Absolutely.
excited to chat, dude.
Yeah,
So Sam is an entrepreneur. He's going to dive into his business and his journey. But first, I wanted to start it out with just asking the question that we always ask. What does impact mean to you? And how do you show up in the world and provide impact?
yeah, that's a great first question, Jim. I think impact for me, really is like creating change and providing value. When you first said that, there's so many different ways that I can go with it. It's been a few months, but I was recently in a car crash, got rear-ended, and that's an impact that I really wasn't anticipating.
Yep.
So I think that depending on how you look at it, you can be impacted or you can create the impact.
Totally.
And I think that both are correct.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to be receiving to get that impact in a positive way, to create change or to change your mindset.
Yeah.
So that you can then go and create the impact for others and provide that value to make change. So there you go. Little analogy.
I like that. Bringing it back to the real world.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you're okay, man.
Yes, sir.
I do remember that. Yeah. I do remember that. What an important, wow, coming in hot, Sam. I like it. What an important concept to navigate, though. So you said you can either be impacted, and from a positive mindset standpoint, once you're impacted, you can then impact others.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking truly about the ripple effect.
Right.
Tell me more about that. Like, why did it come to that with you and your brain when I asked about impact?
Yeah. So, prior background, excuse me. I have an education background, prior to becoming an entrepreneur. So I think that that's my mindset on just being exposed to so many different kids,
Of course.
and really adults in that aspect, and doing it in a way to where you show who you are and your real self, whether it be through transparency or communication or just other values that you find important. You don't necessarily like force those onto people, but you're just who you are, and then they pick up on those characteristics.
Wow. So showing up authentic and real and being you and holding to your standard or your expectation or holding to your morals and values and beliefs.
Yeah.
So in by turn, you showing up wholeheartedly as yourself will leave a positive influence or an impact, or you hope to leave that impact on others.
Right.
Based on proximity and repetition and consistency in proximity.
Yeah.
Dude, we're going deep here because these are so important. Like that concept right there is so important, because proximity is great, but if you don't have the right proximity and you don't have proximity from a level of consistency, then how do you actually create impact and make change?
Yeah.
Right? You can't just show up and do something once. In some cases, yeah, but like usually it's consistent effort to create a bigger impact.
Right.
But then also the proximity piece of who you're around. So in business and networking and events and all those things, it translates. But in your world, growing up in the education side of things, it's you just showing up as you with a self-love and a defined set of morals and values in your work every day consistently, in hopes that you showing up positive will impact those in your proximity, because they have to be in your class.
Right.
In a positive, impactful way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, dude.
I always said too that transparency, like if you're transparent, I'm going to be transparent with you. Therefore, there's no gray area as to where we stand. And so, and a lot of times, honestly, that's hard, because it's like, I could just kind of flirt around it.
Yeah.
Or have this gray area. But then for me specifically, I'm a master projector, and I will play out every situation that there could possibly be. So then I got to a point to where I said, if I'm just transparent and authentic, then there's no question about where we stand. And sometimes that creates hard conversations.
It does. And but I think there's two lessons with what you just said about full transparency. The first lesson being a lot of anxiety and stress in my life and in others that I've communicated. Not everybody's, I'm not saying this is an umbrella, but a majority of people I've talked to feel this way as well, where if you aren't transparent, you're having like levels of anxiety around having to show up as someone that you're not. So like for me, why not be transparent? Because then I don't have to play a game of anxiousness and nervousness to keep chasing the lie or the BS or the story I told myself or someone else.
Yep, 100%. And I don't know how deep you want to go, but I call that putting the mask on.
Yep.
And so there was a point in my time, full transparency, where I had a mask on. But then I would go to a different situation or environment and have to put a different mask on.
Oh, I lived my whole life in my 20s that way.
Yeah.
Every single day.
And like you said, it got very exhausting to remember what mask to put on.
Yeah.
That it created problems in my personal life and my family and
of course,
business, career, whatever, that you get to a certain point to where you're like, I don't want to do this.
Well, the thing too is you're actually hurting everybody that you're playing those games with.
Yeah.
Right. It's no one's winning. You're not winning because you're running around or you're running from who you truly are.
Right.
Right. You're running from things you may not like about yourself or things you do like. Right. We can go deep into the trauma side of that. And I'm sure we've all done that. Right. It's a human thing. We're running away from something. Right. Typically it's ourselves. Or you can navigate it down the road of like, how does that actually hurt that person? Well, that person's making decisions and spending time and showing up a certain way based on misinformation, right? And like talk about where we are today in 2024, the world of mis or disinformation, right?
Right.
We call this the information age, and I guarantee you this will be called the information age. But in the last couple of years, it should be the misinformation age. Like, it's just absurd. So by not showing up in a transparency of who you are and how you act, that person's making decisions on something that's not real, which causes how they act, which goes right back to the first thing we said about the ripple effect of impact, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about perspectives. Well, impact can be a negative impact, like the collision impact, physical collision that your car had, and that was negative, right? You may have tweaked your back, thankfully you're okay, your car was damaged, negative things occurred. Or it could be the perspective of positives.
Yeah.
And I think how you show up, if you were, I do believe 99% of people are good. I wholeheartedly believe that. Well, if that's the truth, there is always two sides of a perspective with impact, good and bad, because there's still that 1%, right?
Right.
That I know and don't think is good in this world.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Do you agree with that? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I do. And kind of on the negative impact, honestly, when going back to the car crash in that situation, and there's situations that come up every day in life.
Of course.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But no matter what the negative situation, I think that you have to kind of just take that thought captive in a way to, like, I'm not going to let this make a negative impact in my life
100%.
so that I can not make a negative impact in people's life.
100%.
And so you have to recognize when those opportunities arise. It's kind of like the, whack-a-mole,
Yep.
like that comes up. Nope. Not letting that happen. Not letting that happen.
Well, you have to take control that emotions are natural and you have triggers. And when certain things pop up like the whack-a-mole, how do you respond?
Right.
Do you let that thing grow and pop up? I don't even know now. I'm visualizing this whack-a-mole like multiply up, right? I'm like, that's a weird image.
Level 4.
Yeah. Or do you identify it and go, not today, and suppress it, right? And I think, to your point, that's the struggle we play in every day. And, there's a song, I can't remember the name of it. but it talks about, it's a guy giving a speech at his high school, but he's older looking back on his life, and he talks about the things that matter and don't matter. And it's this, I'll look it up. But he talks about at the end, the whole concept is like, life's a game and you're playing it against yourself. Like, and it just popped up in my mind because like in those moments, it's like, no one knows they're having those thoughts.
Right.
No one knows that you've identified this and you're making a decision, right? Like in life, it's the battle amongst yourself, right? Are you listening to what's in between your ears? Are you ever talking to what's in between your ears, right? In offense and defense and everything we do in life.
Yeah, it did.
So it's like in that moment when you're saying suppress the whack-a-mole, you're on the offense, right? Like you're saying no, or defense. Yeah, because the negative comes up and you're on the defense to suppress it. Yeah.
Correct.
So you're playing defense, and then the offense is how you respond and move forward.
Yeah.
Right. So the defense is, no negatives. The offense is the positive of like, well, now how do I act?
Right.
I'm not going to let the negative own me, so I'm going to act positive, right? You can't have two feelings or two thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
You can go back and forth instantaneously, which is called, I just learned this weekend in a book I read. It's called cognitive dissonance.
Yep. I've heard that term.
Yep. Cognitive dissonance. But I don't know where I was going with this, because I'm like running through so many situations in my head where I've had to whack them all down, play defense, and then go on the offense of positivity. And every time I've done it, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Sam, every time I've done it, it's almost instantly right after that I've identified it. It's like the direction completely goes in such a better way. Like, have you ever experienced that where you're you're in between your ears, you feel the negatives, you push through it, and then something great happens?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever had that experience?
Absolutely.
Where you're like, man, if I showed up shitty like I was gonna 2 seconds ago, this wouldn't have gone well.
Well, yeah. As you know, like events, can be a downfall for me. And there's been times where I'm like, man, I really don't want to go, but you never know what can happen or meet cool people. And, and so it's like, all right, I'm going to go.
We've all been there. We've all,
and then you
want to sit on the couch and not get in the car and drive to an event. I'm guilty. I did it 2 weeks ago.
but then all right, I'm going to push through. I'm going to go. I'm going to get a car. I'm going to hit traffic. All these negative things pop up.
Yep.
I'm doing it. I'm committed. Let's go. But then so all the negative is squashed because you're now going to the event. Yeah. Then you get to the event and things don't go the way that you thought they should.
Correct.
Again, in between your ears. And I mean, I've gone and I've texted my wife and I said, within 5 minutes, next time I want to do this, please remind me why they're so miserable. But then 15 minutes in, I've connected with 3 people. Conversation's great. And now I've said to myself, okay, I'm going, but I'm only staying for 45 minutes.
Yep.
And then I stay for the whole 2 hours or the 3 hours.
Yep.
Or I'm now at a point to where my wife's like, are you coming home? But it's because I've pushed through several barriers of A, going initially, and then B, having conversations to try to form the connection that now I've connected with so many different people that it's like, I don't want to leave this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk me through in those moments, your emotions and your feelings.
Let's see. What is it?
So like you said,
roller coaster.
So you said like, I'm texting my wife saying, why'd you let me come to this? Right. What is your emotion? Is your emotion like, tell me what you're feeling in that moment. Like, you just had a bad interaction.
No,
or you haven't even had an interaction yet. You're just nervous, awkward, anxious.
A little
tell me.
Anxiety, nervous. And it's weird because again, I come from an education background where I'm talking all day, every day, whether it be
you're putting on a presentation for like 6 hours a day. Yeah.
And in communication with parents and, kids that one day love you, next day hate you, 15 minutes, they love you, 20 minutes later they hate you, whatever. And so it's in those situations though that you don't know what's on the other side. And I think the fear of the unknown gets me in that situation, because again, I'm a projector, so I'm trying to control it.
Yeah.
When really I just need to, going back to what we said earlier, I need to be authentic. And then in those moments, find people that align with my authenticity and who I am. And then that's where the conversation happens, to where I don't want to leave, because we're hitting it off. It's great. And now we're talking about sports and personal and, business and all the things, to where it's like, this is awesome. And so, and I think I've shared this with you before, but I'm what I tab an introverted extrovert.
Yep.
So I love to connect with people. The introverted part, in my opinion, or from my perspective, I'm an analyzer. I taught math. So that's the logical reasoning behind things. I have to analyze. So the introvert in me analyzes the situation until I feel comfortable to then become an extrovert and have those conversations.
True. It's funny because during our consulting call, and we were doing some role playing and stuff earlier, I was like, as I was giving you situational analysis, I could see you analyzing.
Yeah. 100%.
And then you tried to analyze around it. And I was like, no, this is the situation. You're like, well, what did this? And I'm like, I could see you analyzing. And I'm like, no, that could happen, but this is the situation.
Yeah.
It's just funny because I can see how, if you have that alignment with someone, you guys can get into such a deep convo. Right. And it only takes that one similarity based on your characteristics and how you show up and what's important and what excites you. So you have that one alignment with someone who's similar, and you guys can just analyze and go deep on something. And it's like, oh, I was supposed to be home an hour ago. Sorry, babe, I'm not dead. Right? I'm not dead. We're just, we're just shutting the place down. Everybody's actually already left. Right? Like, I can see that. So from an introvert or an extrovert and introvert?
Introverted extrovert.
An introverted extrovert. So is the introverted piece everything leading up to alignment? And the extrovert is, once you get that alignment, you're like, this is awesome. Let's talk about blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like walk me through, where does that transition happen in a conversation at an event?
Yeah. I think,
because I've always been curious about this. I'm seeing this term a lot online.
Okay.
I'm seeing friends I know, people I know, speakers even that have spoken at my conference, or I've spoken on a stage with them, high level, high profile. And I'm like, I don't have deep relationships. So I'm like, I wouldn't peg you anything as an introvert to this person. I'd peg you as an extrovert. And then one person who I did meet at a meet and greet and spent an hour and a half with. We both spoke. She's, I think, 900,000 followers, like released a book, pretty big up there. She is 100%. I would never call her an extrovert. It was like pulling teeth for me, as I'm the extrovert, and it was hard for me to have a conversation. That's how introvert she was. But they call each other the same thing. So my experience has been drastically different.
Sure.
And I would actually label one person as an introvert, one as an extrovert. Walk me through that experience of how that shows up and means for you.
Yeah. I think as cliche as it is, you want to do business with people like, and trust. You hear that all the time. And that's true. And there's so much validity to that. But I think for me, going back to the mask, of not being who I truly am, I wasn't allowing people to know, like, and trust me. Number one. Number two, then that creates like a guard or a shield. Like, maybe we do align, but nope, shield. Like, I'm not letting you too close, or I'm not letting you in too much. And so I think that's where that introverted piece comes from.
Okay.
At a certain threshold of, and honestly, the older I get, the more selective I am, and it's not that I had 70,000 friends and I was I can't hang out with you this weekend because I'm with these people. Like, that's not me. That's not the lifestyle that I live.
But even people who were like that growing up, I think in their 20s and early 30s aren't like that anymore, because we almost want that definitive, tight, intimate group with true alignment where we can be ourselves on every level of the makeup of the human body, right? Yeah. So we can have that deep human connection, because that deep human connection has to stem from transparency.
Right.
A lot of people use the word authentic, and I'm digging this transparency word, because it's authentic is like, I'm authentic, I'm going to show up authentic. Well, you're trying to show up authentic, where transparency is like, dude, it's just transparent. Like, you know, if there was words scribed on me and my flesh was clear, you'd see all the words. That's transparency, right? Like, you can see right through it. I like that word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways.
And yeah, you get to a point to where, and obviously, you know, you hear people, and you probably said it, I've said it, you know, like, we're married. Like, I'm not trying to impress anybody. Like, I don't care. Obviously, you want to look nice and well represented for yourself and your brand and whatever. But it's like, I am who I am.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I told my wife last night, like, I struggle with that a little bit. Like, I have to get to a place to where I have affirmations to remind me of that. So when those negative moments rise, that's not me. That's not the business that I run. That's not the people that I connect with, whatever you want to put there. So
I think everybody has to have an understanding of how to retool that when it pops up. Because if you're someone who says, I don't have negative thoughts, you're a liar.
Right.
Science shows up to 90,000 thoughts a day. On average, 60,000 at 80 to 90% negative. So if you take the 60,000 at 80%, you're looking at 47,000 negative thoughts per day. Dude, that's crazy. So you have to have a way to understand it, move through it, whack that mold down, play a little defense, and then hit the offense.
Yeah. And I think, you know, to use your defense offense, I like that, because I don't play that game, the whack-a-mole game, a lot, but I think there's certain points to where you try to be so proactive that you don't want to have three up at the same time, because then it's confusing. Yeah. And so you try to get ahead of the game and be proactive in certain situations, and have structures or have people that you are comfortable with having a conversation that holds you accountable.
Yep. Support system.
Like, dude, that's not you. Like, it's okay to have a bad day, but I'm going to call you out on it because I love you.
Yeah.
Because I care about you.
I made one rant post on Facebook, probably since I've had a Facebook, and 4 or 5 people called me and texted me, hey, you okay? I'm like, what? And it was about AI. Like, no one wants to hear that you're embarking on a journey, and like, but I never talked like that. So someone was like, people were like, whoa, you know. But it was just like, and the truth of the matter was, it was a rant. But I woke up and I had 4 emails. The first 4 emails in my inbox were the same ChatGPT script from 4 different companies, and it pissed me off. And it had all those 3 things.
Right.
But it's funny because you have to have those support systems.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't a big thing to me, but because it was out of line for me. People were, is Jim okay? That's a support system, right? But in a support system, doesn't need to be external, like someone holding you accountable or checking in. Most of mine are internal, right? Like my friend Sally, she's got me going through this course with her on positive intelligence. And it's called these PQ reps. When you're stressed out or you have anxiety, your saboteurs pop up that are trying to sabotage you from your best self. There's these little things you can do, like rub your fingers together and just focus and have gratitude on the fact that, like, you're here and you're present, and how your fingers feel, and you're real, and like, right? And you start going through that. Those things bring me back when negative stuff pops up. So like, for instance, no one knows this because I haven't shared this, but last event, I've been throwing events for 4 years. I've never had AV problems. Last event we had what? It was like no videos played. I had to use the microphone. I couldn't get the Zoom up. So I had zoomed in our charity partner, Jacob's Audible. I had to hold the mic for like 5 minutes. Like, that's super uncomfortable. My hands are probably shaking. Videos didn't work. Everything worked before we did the test. I'm a responsible person. I prepare. I do the work before the work. But sometimes it fails.
Sure.
What no one realized was I was doing these positive intelligence things because that was my system to not have such a crabby negative attitude. My whole body heat rose. I was pissed. Like, it brought me to the level of frustration and anger to where 10 years ago in my 20s, I would have put a hole in the wall. Like, that's how pissed off I was because I prepared. I got there early. There was some other things that happened with the venue. I moved through those pretty easily. I thought the day was good and great. I just watched the whole presentation perfectly. We got the TVs. We had John there helping me with the AV and his company and 5 videographers, right? Like, we did everything. And I had to use that system of just getting the present and like, none of that matters. I'm here today. I'm alive. I have gratitude. There's 50 people in the room. We had someone sponsor the lunch. Everybody got lunch. Everybody ate. Everybody's happy, content. The content's amazing. Like, we've got, these amazing speakers who are here and excited and pouring into the community. But I had to have that internal system. No one knew that I was going through that.
Yeah.
Maybe my wife, because she knows how much
Sure.
I push myself for perfection in those moments. But like, also that baseline, as I'm saying this, I'm like, I had to tell myself perfection's not real 5 times in that moment. That's another system I've created, right? So it's external and internal.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get back to you before we wrap up. I know we've been rocking and rolling today. Tell me a little bit, you have such a unique way of looking at your business and how you partner and help companies. It's really interesting because I know the business you're in, I know the space, the industry you're in, and I know several people that you compete with in companies, but no one really has the approach you have and like the level of human connection and looking at their business and understanding who you work with, not just your service, but how to help them grow their business and their team and their top line revenue and their, go-to-market strategy and reuse and rekindle and I'm going on and on because we just have such a deep conversation. I'm like, I don't know any company that does this in your space.
Sure.
So that's why I can probably regurgitate this, but tell me a little bit about your company and tell me how you look at this so different and like how you show up and your brand shows up.
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that because like we all have, I've probably changed my elevator pitch or whatever you would call it, so many times.
Version 77 today, yes. 78 tomorrow.
Dropping, yeah. But it's like I sometimes, depending on the environment, I take pictures of homes, but then when you say it like that, that sounds really, really creepy. But a lot of times people know I'm coming. And that kind of, I do that intentionally because of the humor aspect.
Yeah.
Real estate media, just media, depending on what you want to talk. But to answer your question, normally I'm targeting real estate agents, companies, offices, brokerages to help them with their listing. And a lot of people think, okay, I do drones and I do floor plans and I take pictures and videos and whatever is associated with a listing. And that's true, but I do take a different approach. I think of myself as an extension of that team or that agent.
Okay.
And so it's, yes, I provide that content to help them sell that listing, but I help them and educate them in a way to where it's, let's use this to get you more listings. Yeah, you want to sell this one, but how can we use this content to help you sell more listings, sell them faster, and hopefully for more money? And so it's that kind of approach of where it's not my job to sell the house, it's my job to sell the agent. And so how can I strategically place myself in a position to do that? Whether it be providing good content is one, but also I think the educating, going back to obviously communication is important for me and transparency. If I drop the ball, I'll own it. If it's something that I can fix, I'll do it. But having that communication, I have seen means more than just Yeah, I'm going to show up at 10 o'clock and take your pictures, and then I'll deliver them tomorrow, and then you pay me.
It's transactional.
And then I'm done.
It's bland. It's boring.
I'm
it's
going to tell you
average.
that I showed up at 10 o'clock if you're not there. I'm going to text you that I left at 11:17 and that everything's locked up and the lights are off or whatever the case may be. I'm going to text you tomorrow, hey, content should be in your inbox. Yeah, I just sent them. You got an email, but you also got a text to be looking for them. And so it's the extra step where the little things make the biggest difference.
I love how you said the piece around you sell the agent. And the reason why I love that is because what you're describing right now is to better position the agent to better position themselves to their client.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they keep their client, they satisfy their client, they get referrals, because in the real estate business, referrals and word of mouth is your best marketing tool. So you're growing their business, and then you also help them on the brand side make their brand and them look good to get more business from new customers.
Right.
Like, the thing that's crazy to me is you do this, like, your content's so good that you don't even talk about how good your content is because it's expected. Like, you're selling all these other things you do because your content is already there, and you don't need to say, I take the best pictures. And I think that's just such a unique approach for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I love is, like, you know, on their, like you said, you're part of the team, and that's what it feels like to work with you, right? Like, it's like, I could put you on my listing presentation as my marketing director because you're directing what I do with the photos, you're directing how I use them, you're helping me with my brand get exposure, the property brand, the company brand. Like, you truly are almost a marketing director for an individual realtor or a small team.
Right.
Because we both know in those settings you don't have, people don't typically outsource the marketing role, but you're coming in with so much marketing expertise and how to grow brand and build and position that it's almost like I'd put you on my freaking team, right on my listing.
Yeah,
right?
and that's
And that's what I do. Like,
I don't want the recognition.
Sam is my media team,
But
right?
that's the
Like,
idea.
Janelle's my marketing coordinator. Mackenzie's my transaction coordinator. Nick Grayson's my ads, Facebook and social media ads, right? And, like, that's on my team.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, Jim, you come with all these people? Yeah, because the relationship's so deep that they truly are on my team.
Yeah.
Like, if I call Sam and I'm in a pitch, he's gonna treat me like he's part of Jim Morris Real Estate.
Right.
Because there's that level of commitment, camaraderie, relationship, human connection. So I feel comfortable plastering him on my listing presentation because he is part of my team.
Yeah.
That's what I think is so unique. Like, I've never experienced it in the real estate space. Even my transaction coordinator who's outsourced, like, that took 2 years for me to put her on as part of my team because it took 2 years to build that trust. Where you're on my presentation already.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate that. But that's the value that I have. Everything's so speed to market that it's like, but that's how you get more listings.
True.
You know, it's not a fake, let me just put all these people on here.
Yeah.
It's a legit, like, and I tell people,
But
like,
it comes with the relationship,
Right.
right? I can't just say Sam's my marketing director and my media team if Sam's not going to come through if I need him. Sam's not actually going to make the property look better because he's like, use this photo and put this here and put this on this graphic and let's take photos of you at the property for your personal brand in these sites. Like,
yeah.
No one does that in
Well,
that
and
industry.
to go back to the transactional, yes, my content is good because I take pride in the details. And so I'll spend probably, depending on the house, longer than maybe I should because I'm not trying to shoot, move on to the next and cram all these in one day because I care about what I'm putting out, but also I want to make you look good.
Makes sense.
So that then when you go to that next listing presentation, you say, well, look at the media from my last listing and here's how I'm going to market it.
Yeah.
You have legitimacy already built with that client that maybe you don't know.
Dang, I love it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's just it's one of those things where when you're in a market that doesn't have a unique offering and you see it, it just gets me excited, right? From the business side, consulting side of my world, I'm just like, this is unique. Like, this is serving at a high level. This is going above and beyond. This is compassion. This is empathy. This is partnership. This is strategy. Like, you don't see that in I take photos of houses company. And I just think it's so drastically different than the norm. So I just gotta give you kudos for it. And that's why I wanted to hear it from your side, because I wanted to dive deep, like, and this is how we'll wrap the podcast, and thanks for joining us today. But my last question to you is, like, why do you do that? Why do you go above and beyond? Why do you look at this as a business partnership? Why do you have so much passion around strategically positioning your clients to win and look great and help their clients? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I think so. With my education background, I coached athletically, and I think that's probably where it stems from a little bit. Like, I'm very competitive, but I always say my playing days are over. I'd love to, throw on a jersey one more time, but those days are over, and I'm okay with that. And so now I'm in a position to coach people. And I was talking to Neil Flora one time, and I asked him what's a coach, and you get all these different answers, just like you probably do with Impact. And I pulled up on my phone a picture. Think back in the old days, like what's that game that we played growing up in school? Oregon Trail.
Oh yeah.
All right. So they had coaches on there. Well, then you're like, where's he going with this? Well, a coach is a covered wagon.
Yep.
Back in the day, they were called coaches. But what's the purpose of that? To take people from where they are to where they want to go. And so I think that's my approach athletically, transparency, so you know where you stand, but also I'm going to help you where you're at to where you want to go. And we're going to develop through the process. And so I think that approach has kind of come into play here.
I like the cover. You got my brain going with the covered wagon, because now I'm thinking back on your transparency concept, and I'm like, we can just take the cover off the wagon. So a coach should be transparent.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, keep going.
Yeah. And so I think, I guess I'm taking people from where they are to where they want to go through media, through relationships, through whatever. That I think, but to steal your word, going back to how we opened, like, I just want to make an impact. Like, I got into this, and I tell everybody, for the flexibility and the scalability, but more so the flexibility, because I have 2 small kids, and I want to be able to spend time with them.
Of course.
At my discretion.
Make an impact in business with the right people, doing the right thing, showing up 110%, so you can create the impact at home as well.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's where again, I'm a math brain, so everything has 2 sides. Yep. And so but you can do both sides well.
True.
And show up for both sides, and make a difference, and so now I'm having conversations with my 6-year-old, like, what do I do? Will you take pictures? Well, why? So that we can have nice things. And that's a 6-year-old mindset, but then I can take that conversation and go wherever I want to with it. Like, no, here's why, and here's why you have nice things, or here's why we get to do trips.
Yeah.
Is so that you have the experiences, so that, and I'm honest and transparent with my 5-year-old. I told him, quit saying I can't ride your bike. You can. Quit saying I can't, because now you start to believe that. And that's the same thing I do as a 34-year-old.
That's it. That's it.
And so it's a finding those avenues to have conversations with a kid, when really we need to hear the message ourselves.
I mean, the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah. Well, I have an education background. So that's why I take the approach in business, though, of here's how you can take this one video and get so much value out of it and springboard it to 4 more potential jobs.
Let's go.
So I appreciate you having me on here. It's so much fun.
Thanks, Sam. What an episode. I didn't know where we were going to go today, but man, we hit it all. Transparency, self-talk, mindset, impact, how you show up uniquely in your business and industry, and make an impact in an industry that may be crowded or just, seem as if there's so many options sometimes, right? thanks for joining us today. Sam Gordon's in the house, and I appreciate you all staying to the end and spending some time with us on the Impact Effect podcast. We'll see you next time.